Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The clock struck midnight, and the once comforting silence of our suburban home morphed into a harbinger of the chaos to come. My wife, Elena, had been restless lately, murmuring in her sleep, dreams or secrets spilling over, I wondered. That night, she chose the solace of the guest room, citing my snoring as her escape. Left alone in our bed, the hum of the air conditioner was my only companion until it was punctuated by the faint, yet unmistakable sound of our back door creaking open. I lay frozen, ears straining, as soft footsteps padded across the kitchen tile. Every instinct screamed to call the police, but curiosity chained me to the spot. I slipped out of bed, grabbing the baseball bat by the dresser, a relic from my college days. Peering down the hallway, I spotted a figure, a man, silhouetted against the refrigerator's glow. He moved with a familiarity that sent chills down my spine. As I stepped closer, the intruder turned, and the dim light fell on his face. It wasn't a face I knew, yet there he was, rummaging through my home. "Who are you?" My voice was a harsh whisper, betraying both anger and disbelief. He jolted, eyes wide with shock. "Look, What are you doing in my house?" I advanced, tightening my grip on the bat. "I'm sorry, man, I just came to get something I left here." His voice was shaky, his eyes darting toward the stairs. "Something you left? At midnight?" Suspicion coiled in my gut like a snake. What could possibly? He cut me off, his desperation palpable. "My underpants, okay. I left my lucky underpants here, and I need them for a job interview tomorrow." The absurdity of his words would have been laughable if not for the sinking feeling in my stomach. "Your underpants," I repeated, the pieces clicking into place all too late. "Please, I didn't mean any harm. I just..." Before he could finish, a soft voice called from the stairs. "James, let him take them. Please." Elena stood there, a robe pulled hastily around her, her expression one of weary resignation. The sight of her, so out of place in the chaos, struck me harder than the intruder's confession. "Elena?" My voice broke around her name. She descended the stairs slowly, her gaze locked on mine. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what it seems, isn't it?" The words tasted bitter. The stranger awkwardly shuffled, clutching something to his chest, presumably his precious underpants. "Yes," she whispered, finally reaching the bottom of the stairs. "I'm sorry, James." "Sorry?" Anger flared within me, raw and consuming. "You bring him into our home. Betray me in our bed." The intruder, sensing the danger, edged toward the door. "I should go." "No," I stepped in his path. "You'll stay. Both of you will hear what I have to say." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but I was beyond caring. Betrayal, like a viper, had sunk its fangs deep into my heart. "Tonight, you both broke more than just trust," I began, my voice cold and steady. "You shattered our lives. And I will make sure you regret it." The room fell silent, save for the ticking of the hall clock. Plans of revenge began to weave through my thoughts, each more vindictive than the last. Tonight marked the end of our marriage, and the start of their ruin. This night, under the cover of darkness, I learned of betrayal. By dawn, I would begin to plot my revenge. As the early morning light seeped through the curtains, the scene from the night before morphed into a grim reality. The intruder, now revealed as Elena's lover, sat handcuffed to one of our sturdy dining chairs, an idea born of my newfound rage. Elena watched from the living room sofa, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed but defiant. "You didn't have to handcuff him, James." "This is absurd," she hissed, her voice low but fierce. "I did, and it's only the beginning," I replied, my tone icy as I dialed the number of a private investigator I knew from a past photography gig. Trust had left this house, replaced by the mechanics of my revenge. Dan. It's James. I need a favor. Can you come over right now? It's urgent. I kept my eyes on Elena as I spoke, watching her flinch at the word urgent. Within the hour, Dan arrived, his expression grave as he took in the scene. James, what's going on here? I explained everything in clipped sentences, my words laced with a cold fury. Dan listened, nodding slowly, his professional mask in place. I'll need full access to her phone, computer, anything that can tell us how long this has been going on. You can't, Elena started, rising from the sofa. I can and I will, I cut her off, turning to Dan, do whatever it takes. Dan set to work, his equipment sprawling across our kitchen table. Elena's lover, whose name I learned was Mark, kept his head down, his earlier bravado dissolved into silence. As Dan hacked into Elena's digital life, I turned my attention to Mark. So, how long has it been? How long have you been sneaking around with my wife? Mark swallowed, his eyes flickering to Elena before returning to the floor. 6 months, he mumbled. 6 months, I echoed, my voice hollow. Anger simmered within me, but it was the betrayal that fueled my next actions. Dan looked up from his laptop, his face serious. James, you need to see this. I approached, peering over his shoulder. The screen displayed a slew of messages, emails, and photos, each one a stab to my heart. Dates, hotel receipts, countless lies, it was all there. Download everything. I want copies, I directed, my mind racing with the legal ramifications. Divorce was inevitable, but I wanted more than just separation. I wanted justice. Elena stood abruptly, her face a mix of fear and anger. You're destroying us, James. This isn't you. This isn't me. I laughed bitterly, turning to face her. No, Elena, this is exactly me. The man who values loyalty above all. And you, I pointed accusingly, have none. As Dan continued his work, I outlined my plan. Elena, once this is over, we're done. Divorce papers are the least of your worries. I want full custody of our memories, our shared life. You can have him, I gestured dismissively at Mark, but you'll leave with nothing else. Elena's eyes widened, her lips parting in a silent gasp. Mark, still handcuffed, shifted uncomfortably, the reality of his situation settling in. I'll fight you, Elena said quietly, her voice shaking. You won't get away with this. But I will, I replied, the contours of my plan sharpening like a knife. Because I'm not just going to divorce you. I'm going to expose you both. Every friend, every family member, will know what you did. Dan handed me a USB drive. It's all here. Everything you need. Taking the drive, I felt a grim satisfaction. This was only the beginning. Revenge was a path laid out before me, and I was ready to walk it, step by calculated step. As Elena and Mark watched me, their fear was palpable. They knew, as did I, that the storm was just beginning. The morning's revelations hung heavy in the air as I stepped outside, the USB drive containing Elena's betrayals burning a hole in my pocket. The sun had risen, casting long shadows over the lawn that once hosted our summer barbecues, now the stage for the unraveling of our lives. I walked to my car, keys jangling with a determined clink. My first stop was the office of my attorney, a seasoned shark in the legal waters who'd guided many through tumultuous divorces. Today, he would chart my course through these treacherous, personal storms. James, this is rather extreme, even for you, Alan remarked dryly, peering over his glasses as I laid out the USB drive and explained the morning's chaos. It's only fitting, I retorted, my jaw set. She didn't just cheat, Alan. She brought him into our home. I want everything exposed. Alan nodded, tapping a pen against the folder of digital evidence. And you're sure about going public with this? Absolutely. The word was a bullet, shot from a place of cold resolve. Very well, Alan said, his voice all business now. I'll start the divorce proceedings and prepare a statement for the press. Anything else? Yes, I paused, the next step forming, a darker shadow in a day filled with them. I want a restraining order against Mark. He's not to come anywhere near me or my property again. Alan raised an eyebrow but nodded, scribbling notes. I'll get on it. Anything to protect your interests. Leaving the office, I felt a semblance of control return. The next stop was the local news station. An old school friend worked there, and today, I'd cash in on that friendship. James, are you sure you want to do this? Terry, the news director, asked as we sat in his cluttered office, the USB now connected to his computer. Play it, I said simply, and as the images and messages filled the screen, Terry's reluctance turned to understanding. It's news, Terry. And it's the truth. We'll need to verify everything. Do it. I'll wait, I said, settling into the chair, my arms crossed, watching as my private agony became a public spectacle. By the afternoon, the story was out. Local businessman exposes wife's affair in shocking revelation, the headline screamed. I watched the news unfold from a coffee shop across the street, my phone off to silence the barrage of calls that had started the moment the story aired. The cafe was a neutral ground, a place where neither Elena nor Mark could touch me. From here, I watched the digital storm sweep across social media, local forums lighting up, the community taking sides. Then, my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Mr. James. This is Detective Larson. I'm calling about the allegations you've made against Mark. We need you to come in to discuss the restraining order and the evidence you've provided to the press. Of course, Detective. I'll be there within the hour, I replied, my tone polite, but firm. At the station, the reality of my actions began to crystallize. This was no longer just between Elena, Mark, and me. It had ballooned, impacting friends, family, and now, involved the police. Detective Larson was straightforward. We've spoken to Mark. He's claiming that the situation isn't as you've described. He's also threatening legal action for defamation. Let him try, I said coldly. Everything I've said, I can prove. Just making sure you understand the implications, Mr. James. I do, Detective. And I'm ready for whatever comes next. Leaving the police station, the evening air felt cooler, as if the day's heat was finally conceding to the night's calm. But inside, there was no calm. There was only the swirling chaos of betrayal, the sharp pangs of heartbreak, and the cold resolve of revenge. The battle lines were drawn. Now, it was time to see how the war would unfold. The days following the media storm were tense, each hour stretching like a taut wire ready to snap. The public's reaction was a mix of sympathy, scorn, and sheer spectacle. Amidst this, my plan for retribution grew darker, taking shape with a calculated precision that even I hadn't known I possessed. I had secured a temporary restraining order against Mark, and my divorce proceedings were cutting through legal channels like a sharpened blade. But these were mere formalities, a prelude to the true retribution that awaited. It was on a crisp Saturday morning when the opportunity for my decisive strike presented itself. Mark had foolishly decided to contest the restraining order, a move that required us both to appear in court. I knew this was my moment. Before the court session, I approached him outside, a false truce painted on my face. Mark, can we talk? Just for a minute. Surprisingly, he nodded, stepping aside with me, wary but curious. What is it? I leaned in, lowering my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Look, I know things went south, but I'm willing to drop the restraining order if you agree to leave town. Start fresh. It's best for everyone. Mark's eyes narrowed, suspicion evident, but desperation soon overshadowed it. And the defamation case? I'll drop it. You have my word, I lied smoothly, my heart pounding not from nervousness, but from the thrill of the impending climax of my plan. He mulled it over for a few seconds and then extended his hand. Deal. As we shook on it, I felt no remorse, only the cold satisfaction of a hunter nearing his kill. Just meet me at my place tomorrow. We'll sort out the paperwork, have one last talk, I added, the final bait. He agreed, and I turned away to hide the grin that threatened to break through my composed exterior. The next day, I prepared for his arrival not with legal documents, but with a carefully orchestrated trap. As he walked through the door, confident that he was about to regain his freedom, I was ready. Where's the paperwork? Mark asked, looking around. In the study. This way, I motioned, leading him into the room where I had set up recording equipment hidden among the bookshelves. Everything he said next would be on record. As he stepped in, I closed the door behind us, locking it quietly. Actually, Mark, there's no deal. I lied. What? Confusion flickered across his face, turning quickly to fear as he saw the cold fury in my eyes. I brought you here for a different reason. I pulled out my phone, showing him the live feed of the hidden cameras installed at his own house at that very moment, cameras that showed his belongings being confiscated, his secrets laid bare as private investigators I'd hired ransacked his home under my instruction. You see, Mark, you took something precious from me. Now, I'm taking everything from you. He lunged at me, but I was prepared, stepping aside and watching as he stumbled, panic overtaking him. You're insane. No, just thorough, I replied, pressing a button on my phone. The sound of police sirens approached, another part of my plan. I had tipped them off about illegal substances I'd planted in his house days before. As the officers took him away, his protests and accusations against me fading into the background, I felt a profound sense of closure. The divorce finalized shortly after, Elena leaving town in disgrace, her reputation in tatters. In the end, as I stood alone in the quiet aftermath, the house stripped of its memories, I realized the depth of my actions. I had become an agent of vengeance, my life consumed by the pursuit of retribution. But with the traitors gone, a new silence settled in, one that spoke not of peace, but of a hollow victory. As the sun rose on the horizon, marking the dawn of a new day, I understood that this was not just the end of our story, but the beginning of my own reckoning with what I had become.